Good morning, Grinders. Welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderEd, Blender HD. If you want to follow me on Twitter, and it's Tuesday, August 9th, and the baseball's still going on. We got stuff going on. We got stuff in the works for NFL coming up. That's coming up soon, right? So kind of doing a little preparation. I'm working on the advanced version of the theory of DFS. So I did a little not on Twitter as much or in Discord as often as usual for the next 2 weeks or so, but that'll be coming out shortly. So we got a lot of stuff. It's kind of like it's a slow before the calm before the storm. Is that what they call it? The calm before the storm. But it's not calm in the YouTube chat. Wataz, Suki Singh, Mr. Richard. Good morning, Mr. Richard. Good morning. Hit that thumbs up button on your way in the door. You know how much I love those thummy thumbs in the morning. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live. We got a 14-game slate. 14-game slate tonight. They'll be handling most of that later on Grinders Live and Crunch Time. I'm willing to talk about anything this morning. I'm willing to talk about whatever the hell you want to talk about. So if you're on the YouTube chat, ask your question, post your comments. I'll talk anything you want. Even Steve's in the chat. Good morning to Steve. Good morning. Right? It's getting up early. This early for us is I know it's 11 in the morning. It's like getting up this early. It's like, yeah, but when you don't go to bed until 1, 2 in the morning, whatever. That's what happens. Yesterday on the baseball slate, I went from pretty much not thinking that I was going to cash at all or anything to actually 2.5xing my money in the 121. I played one lineup yesterday. That's it. I've been working on stuff, so I'm playing a little on Prize Picks. I'm trying to do stuff over there. I'm playing a little on DraftKings, maybe a little on just one lineup, 3 lineups, stuff like that. But I was shocked at how low on the Yankees were yesterday. Right, I thought they would be not way higher on, but not. And on the 121, I mean, the ownership gets kind of wacky, right? The chalk becomes chalkier, and the stuff that isn't the chalk becomes even less owned. But I thought the Yankee game was the late game, and of course the Blue Jays didn't do enough, right? Unless you have Matt Chapman, right? So I'm sitting there with Kirk at 6, Bichette at 5, Teoscar at 3, less than 1% on Moustakas at 3, who came out of the game. And then the 2 chalk pitchers from the later game. So I'm sitting there with barely any points. While Orioles stacks and everything, they're lining up the leaderboard. If you have Jose Suarez, you were doing fine. So I'm like, okay, this is I'm not cashing nothing, I'm not winning nothing. And then didn't do badly, right? Because of a 4.8% owned Josh Donaldson, 35 points, and a 1.8% owned Andrew Benintendi, right? Because if people play Judge, Judge was double-digit owned. But not the rest of the lineup. Gleyber Torres with 12 points at 2%. So this is how I put together my lineup for smaller field type of stuff. Small, not the smallest field, but the smaller field. So basically, I don't mind playing the chalk. I don't mind playing, a three-man Blue Jays that's owned, right? But no Vlad Guerrero in that. And then here you go. It's the mix between ownership and projection. This lineup didn't actually project for that badly, right? In comparison to the ownership. That's why I chose it. Bill Thomas says in the chat, my Oriole and Yankees 5-3 won me a GPP yesterday, but it was only in the quarter jukebox. Oh, well, if those are the contests you're playing, then those are the contests you're looking to win. So I only won the quarter jukebox. Well, if that's your normal contest, then that's great. Then you work your way up to the bigger contest, to the mini max with the $1 mini max or something, or you move up to the $4.20 max. You got to start somewhere. So it doesn't matter. Winning the quarter jukebox is about as hard as winning any of the other large field GPPs. And if that's how you're building your bankroll, if that's it, or you just continue to play the good, you could continue playing the quarter jukebox because that's kind of doing it recreationally. Then what's wrong with that? I mean, I don't know what first play, $500 or something like that, $1,000 maybe, the quarter arcade. So that's good. So don't go LOL. It's like, oh, but it was only in the so if that's your goal, that's what you should be. I was playing that until this week. Okay, So but he stepped down and then he won. But that's the point. That's what you should be doing. Okay. Like as your bankroll fluctuates, you should be moving up or down in stakes and in the variance of contests, right? Mr. Richards says he's now playing 50-cent minimax. Okay, because Mr. Richards said the Yankees helped get him out of a big hole last night. Okay, so Mr. Richards saying that. Bill Thomas is someone else. Okay, I have to confuse my. I feel like I like the two guys from the Muppets. Like Mr. Richard. Mr. Richard sounds like maybe I'm talking to a 78-year-old guy. And Bill Thomas is like his friend, right? His like 68-year-old friend. They're all in the balcony just talking about, those damn Yankees or whatever, or something, tilting over something. That's what I imagine. But if you got anything to talk about, feel free to post it in the YouTube chat. But this is the highlight of like making GPP lineups, especially in smaller fields. Like, dude, this was fine in a large field also, based on this ownership. But this is ownership in the 121. So how do you get different? It's like you could still play plenty of chalk. And I'm more likely to play pitcher chalk than hitter chalk, right? Because pitchers are less variant. So, Gallon, Snell at 8,800, Gallon at 7,900. I mean, Snell had a little bit of Snell could have done better, right? He had 8 Ks, but I mean, he wasted a lot of pitches, right? His pitch count got high pretty quickly. Gallon did well, but I mean, not as well as like who won this? Mr. Post, right? See, Snell, Gallon, okay, in the winning lineup, right? Here's Squirrel Patrol with Snell, Gallon, Yankees and Orioles, right? I mean, Orioles, but look, Orioles were owned way more than the Yankees. 15, 12, 14, 12, 7, 17. So decently owned, not like chalk or anything. Mr. Post, I'm assuming his lineup looked very similar to this. Yeah, but with Starling, the Mets were chalky, right? The Mets had the highest team total against Justin Dunn, right? So like avoiding a 31% owned Starling Marte, but he got there. Playing what? I mean, what type of lineup is this? 1, 2, 3. One like a 3-3 lineup. Okay, so it's not as messy as I thought, but this is fine, right? Still played. I mean, low owned with high owned, and you're good. And you're good. Simple, right? You just have to do it often enough, right? He's a good search. He was in first for a while, right? Thompson and Bassett with the Orioles. Still Starling Marte. I think he was the highest scorer on the slate for batters. No. Donaldson was. Right. Donaldson's not even in the winning line. Okay, Donaldson is in the winning lineup. Okay. Sorry. That's what I thought. I was like, no, Donaldson would almost have to be in the winning lineup. He scored way more points than anyone else. You still need to pair him with all the right players. Then we go down to some of these other guys. Let's see, anything that I could. Oh, here's Alan Lem. RotoGrinders own. What did he play? Toronto. So 5-man. So Toronto and Cincinnati. Okay. That was kind of the direction I was looking to go. To not play Bassett. Or what is this? Okay, this is Toronto and the Mets. Okay, hold on. It's not Cincinnati. I'm looking at the CIN. So this is a chalky lineup. Like, to me, this is a little too chalky. Gallon, Bassett, and then Blue Jays, Mets. Playing a 37% owned Brad Nimmo. I mean, for the 121, this isn't like bad. But I prefer to get a little bit more. I prefer the more difference on the bats. Playing when a third of the lineups have Marte and Nimmo in it, like to me, that's the easiest place where you can get leverage. And if you're going to play the Mets, maybe you don't play the Blue Jays. Yeah, of course you're playing Tapia and you're playing the bottom of the order, right? Basically, you play the bottom of the order, guys. Okay, it's not all that bad. I prefer to get a little bit more different than that. And who else do we got here in the 121? How many names do I recognize? How many names do I recognize? And some I do. Let's go down. Can we find any? There's me. Probably also find cash lineups like there's like someone like McLovin. No, he didn't even play. Let's see. What else do we got? BK. BK Reader. Okay. This is Oakland. An Oakland lineup. Murphy Brown. That was a good show back in the day, by the way. Murphy Brown, Bride, Andrews, Piscotty. Had barely any ownership. Then played Chapman, Judge, and Teoscar. Okay, so kind of sort of chalk, like a 5-5-2-1. If you're playing Oakland. But very low owned Oakland. Not very, but Bride's 11. So it's very sad. To me, this is very similar to my lineup. Just that I had the Yankees instead of the A's. Still Snell, Gallen. So this isn't bad. I mean, it didn't cash. It didn't come anywhere near it. But I don't mind this lineup at all. Chapman's 20% owned, 21 points. Judge is 15% owned, 23 points. Teoscar is 25% owned, 3 points. And then you have the Oakland tag. If Oakland does well, you scoot up and you scooch past a lot of other lineups. Yeah, but this is my preferable way of playing these types of contests. Have a low owned stack more than the low owned like secondary pieces, and still play the chalkier pitchers. A lot of people do the other way. They go, I'm gonna play the Mets 5-man and then just find random 1% one-offs. I think you get more of the benefit of the correlation on the low owned players. Because if the A's do well, you get like 5 players that do well at the same time that are all like single digit owned. Doesn't mean you can't make lineups that have chalk and then 3 lone one-offs. That still could be fine. But I'd rather be more different in more spots rather than be less different in less spots. I'm going to play everyone at 30% owned except for one guy that's 1%. So basically, you need the chalk to smash, and then that 1% owned guy to really kill it. It's easier to win when the chalk fails. I want to win the low scoring slates. But I'm glad I won anything yesterday after getting I have like 12 points heading into the 9 o'clock, 9:30, whatever games. I had like 9 points in my lineup or 12 points in my lineup. People have like 100 plus. I'm like, okay, I'm dead. Yeah, but I don't realize that I only had 3 players in my lineup go, 4 players in my lineup going. But since I didn't have the Orioles, I knew I pretty much couldn't win. Until I saw the Yankees ownership. I'm like, okay, maybe they're if they put up 12 runs or something, maybe I got a shot. A shot at least, maybe not winning, but maybe a top 20 or something. Brian Wilson is in the chat. I'm pretty good at NBA, but suck at MLB. What concepts between the two sports should I consider to improve my MLB results? Well, my first question would be, why are you good at NBA? Like, what is the reasoning behind that? And also, what types of contests do you play? The NBA is one of the bigger outliers in DFS, where there's less variance. It's not an event-driven sport. Okay, that's the biggest difference between NBA and pretty much I would say most DFS sports, at least the ones that I play. And I play a lot of them. There's no touchdowns or home runs or goals. There's no event where in 1 second a player could score a lot of points at once. Basketball doesn't work that way. Like in NFL, for instance, you could roster the 5th wide receiver on a team for 3,000 that only will see like 8 snaps. Now, most people would say that's stupid. Most likely, I would tell you that's stupid. His target share is barely anything, and he's barely on the field. Right? But he's one of those guys that's like a sprinter. He can catch a 60-yard touchdown. But he'll only be on the field maybe 8 times in the entire game. Maybe 6 times the entire game. And even then, he'll stretch the field and doesn't even get a target. You're like, well, I'm going to play this guy at less than 1% ownership. Right? On one play, he could score like 14 points in NFL. right? He could score a 50-yard touchdown, right? 50-yard touchdown plus the reception, plus the 6 points for a touchdown, 12 points, one play. He can see the field for that just one play, and that's it. Score 12 points out of the blue. You have a guy that's been playing every snap as a slot receiver or some type of thing, and is like 2 for 20. That's 4 points. Yet he was on the field like 95% of snaps. And one guy could just do dip like that. Basketball, that doesn't work that way. Imagine if you're playing a guy that's projected to play 8 minutes, and then he plays 8 minutes, and he's 3,000. Like, how many points can he realistically score in 8 minutes off the bench in NBA? There's no like, well, he could score like 15 points at once. In order for him to score 15 for 3,000 in a GPP, you didn't. I mean, you minimum 20, right? You want 20 points, and minimum you'd want more than that, but 20 in 8 minutes. Can he score the? He's going to take a 74-foot shot. I mean, what? How do you score that many points? He steals the ball and hits a 3. That's 5.5 points. Block, steal. I mean, like, has it happened on occasion? Yeah, I guess so. But it's hard to do, right? If someone's going to play 38 minutes in a game versus someone that's going to play 10 minutes in a game, unless you're Tony Snell, the guy with 38 minutes has more opportunities to score points. And the guy that's barely going to be on the court, the way basketball is scored, you can't have a lot of points at once. MLB, home run, won it back. Pete Alonso yesterday scored what? Nothing. I think 0 or 2 or something. He was popular. So on his first at bat, you're like, guys, did nothing. Like, dude, in his last at bat, he could hit a grand slam. I mean, he could end up with 20 points in a matter of one pitch, one swing of the bat. That's MLB. NBA doesn't want. You can't do that. Right? If someone has a snowflake heading into the fourth quarter, right? Some $9,000 salary player that just got out of his third quarter rotation, and he's sitting there with 23 fantasy points. It's like, well, he'll be back on the court for the last 5 minutes of the game, assuming it doesn't blow out. Like, how is he getting to 70 from 23 points right there? I guess he can go on a total run in 6 minutes, but I don't see it, right? Probably doesn't happen. Probably maybe squeaks to not a snowflake. Maybe goes from 23 to 45, especially if he's a center. If he's like Embiid or something, get some steals or blocks, maybe. But you can't get it all at once. So because NBA scoring is much more iterative, the distribution of outcomes for players are much more normal. So it's a normal distribution sport, which means if you're using mean projections, they're gonna come. Their outcomes are closer to their means, their medians, most games, within reason. I mean, within one standard deviation of the mean, most of the games. Baseball, they don't have normal distributions. Joey Gallo doesn't have a normal distribution. We can take a look. An MLB. Pitchers have more normal distributions, but batters don't. Like, we just take a look. I mean, we could look at. I mean, different types of players have different standard deviations. It's like the difference between Jose Ramirez. I mean, they're different prices, and Nolan Arenado. Right? There's a difference there. Like, look at all. If we sort by salary, or just even. Let's see, just so apples to apples. Like, if we could play Vlad Guerrero, let's go to first base, for instance. Paul Goldschmidt and Vlad Guerrero Jr. Like, if this was basketball, like, Goldschmidt as a higher 1-point projection is going to beat out Guerrero more times than not. Now, Goldschmidt is going to beat out Guerrero more times than not just based on his projection. But the differences between Goldschmidt and Guerrero in baseball is much smaller than it would be in basketball because the distribution is more normal. Rowdy Tellez and Anthony Rizzo or something like that. Like, well, one is a 0.3 more in projection. Yeah, but one swing of the bat could I mean, one guy scores 0 and the other guy scores 23. In basketball, if you have two players at a similar price, you're rarely going to see. It's like, okay, I'm playing. It's a $3,400 guy with decent usage. Like, it's a 34-minute guy. Like, two guys project in basketball. Like, one's at projects for 45 points, the other projects at 45 points. Like, one may score like 36, and the other could score 52 or something like that. But like, their outcomes will be closer to that number because of the way basketball is scored. On baseball, it isn't. So you could be like, oh, Goldschmidt is a better play than Vlad Guerrero. But like, when does Vlad Guerrero and Goldschmidt actually hit 11 and 10 points? You're going to see a lot more 3s, 25s. You're going to see one guy has 6, the other guy has 19. So while the mean is 10 or 11, there aren't as many 10 or 11 actual outcomes. Like, if you actually looked, it's not a normal distribution, which makes it harder to go, well, if I just go by the numbers, I'm going to play Goldschmidt over Guerrero. If I just go by the numbers, I'll play Freeman over Alonso because of a 0.15 projection difference. Because even if Freeman has better outcomes on average than Pete Alonso, it's only 0.15 better. So you won't be able to see the difference between their outcomes for, like, I don't know, 10,000 occurrences. And you only get a sample size of 1 today. Basketball, that doesn't have, if one guy's projected for 4 points higher than the other guy, you're not going to need a 10,000 slates for you to see that difference. You may need a couple of hundred, which means it's lower variance. But that's when you play MLB, you have to embrace the variance. NBA, you're less likely to embrace. NBA, yeah, I'm known as a contrarian player, but NBA, like those guys that are like projected for like 10 points higher than others, I just jam into all my lineups. There's no reason not to. Well, they're going to be high owned. They're not going to be owned enough. You differentiate elsewhere. MLB, you do the exact opposite. You're embracing the variance. Oh, that's why I said 37% Starling Marte on a 7-game slate. Nimmo, like the Mets yesterday, easy for me to just go, I'm not going to play him. Because it's baseball. I'm going to embrace the variance. Yes, the Mets are the most likely team, but they're not that most likely compared to others where they should be twice as owned as other teams. So I'm going to play the other teams. Just understand that you're going to get it wrong 95 out of 100 times. Welcome to DFS. We have a 14-game slate tonight. There are 28 teams on this slate. One of these teams tonight likely will score 10-plus runs. One of these teams. Likely. Over 50% chance of scoring 10-plus runs. Which one is it going to be? Well, it's going to be more likely to be the Cardinals. But not it's the most likely, but still, it's not 70% likely. Like, no, it's not that at all. To score 10-plus runs, the Cardinals will have like a 2.8% chance or something. To score 8-plus runs, maybe they'll be at 22% chance. Right? Still higher than Texas. To score 8-plus runs, they'd be like a 4% chance. Lower. But not so significantly where one should be 5 times more owned than the other one. So now if you're only playing one lineup, well, which team do you play? Well, dude, you could play Atlanta. You could play the Mets. You could play anyone you want. You could build a lineup with any team. Most likely, if you're playing Texas or whatever at a 3.16 run total, there'll be almost none owned. You're probably playing the best projected pitchers because you already got all the leverage you want. Texas is not going to be owned. So play the best projected pitchers because you don't need to sacrifice any more projection there. And if you play multiple lineups, then you can make 14-game slate. You could make probably 100, 500,000 lineups that are plus EV. Some are a little bit better than others, but a lot of them are very close to each other, and they contain like all the players in the player pool. Welcome to MLB DFS. Make plus EV lineups and lose 95% of the time, and hope that you're aiming for top first place win equity. The 5% of the time that you do win, that you do profit, you want to make 100,000, 50,000, whatever. You can come in the top 10. If you're not building those type of lineups, you shouldn't be playing. And in MLB, you should be more likely to embrace variance. In NBA, you're more likely to embrace projection. MLB is more of a leverage and correlation sport. NBA is more of a projection sport. Very easy to spot. Giannis is out, and Middleton and Holiday are like 6K. Right? Jordan Noir is 3K or whatever. All the usage is like, okay, and the pricing is completely inefficient. It's like, well, if you're not going to play Drew Holiday at 5,200 or something, it's like 38 minutes without Giannis on the court. Like, what are you doing? He projects for like 9, 10x at that price. His median projection is 48 points or something. And he's going to be 82% owned. You go, well, I can't play an 82% owned guy. So why not? He's under-owned. NBA is an iterative sport. That the projections, those levers, you're using the projection lever more than anything in NBA. So when you find that's why it's easy to how you're better at NBA. It feels like, because once you can identify those players, especially if you're using projections, essentially you're playing lineups that have you find 2 or 3 of them, which you typically find with the injuries and everything moving around in NBA. Like 2 or 3 slots in your lineups are kind of self-evident. So you're kind of only playing a five player lineup, which is easier, less slots to get right in the long run. Baseball doesn't work that way. Well, maybe you have the pitcher spots are a little bit less varied. Scorpion says baseball at this point is mega stale. I don't know what you mean by stale. Maybe boring. It's like, okay, you're kind of getting sick of it. I get that. That's but that's August in general. I think August DFS, other than for me, because soccer comes back. So I like soccer. So I play soccer DFS. But if you don't play soccer or whatever, yeah, I could see August being like you don't have basketball, you don't have hockey, you don't have football. You always have golf. That's once a week, rather than the showdown slates if you play those. But yeah, I can see it being like, okay, can we get on to NFL? DFIC, do you build groups for pitchers only or hitters only or all of some? You can do whatever you want. What lineups do you want to build? And if those lineups include making those groups, then make those groups. DFIC, you have to this is the main thing. You have to get away from the tools. Do you do this with this tool? It's like, well, yeah, when I'm looking to build lineups that have that type of dynamic in it, yes. Yes, I am. Well, should I? It's like, well, I don't know what lineups you're trying to build. Figure out the lineups you want to build. You see this tool here, Lineup HQ? Great tool. It's what I use. It's at RotoGrinders. You could sign up as part of the premium package. Click on that link in the description to get $10 off. I like teaching in extremes because it beats you over the head with the point. What I want you to do is X out on your browser, Lineup HQ. I want you to open up, if you're going to use projections, just open up the projection grid just to show you the numbers. Okay? Only do that. Do not open Lineup HQ at all. Do not, if you're using another optimizer, don't open that at all. Nothing. All you could look at are projections if you want to look at projections. Then figure out the lineups you want to make. Go through it. Do it by hand. And I want you to figure out the lineups, all 10 players. I want you to add up all their ownership, and I want you to add up the projection. You could use a calculator. Use your calculator app on your phone. Use whatever you want to do. Do it the long way. So you're going to go through, and maybe you're going to spend 6 hours today doing that. Go through. Do not touch lineup HQ at all. Do not touch a setting. Do not nothing. Nothing there. And I want you to go through and go, okay, what teams are owned? What teams are what's the ownership of these teams? What are the ownership of those teams? What are the ownership at first base? What are the ownership at outfield? What are the ownership at catcher? What do the pitchers look like? Where's the ownership? Is it high salary here, low salary? Is it high salary? Like, go through all of that, and then go, okay, 5 seems like this team is a little underowned. Seems, you may not even know, but it seems like it. So you go, okay, let's say if I play this first base, second base, and you plug in some things, and then you fit it around. You could do it inside the DraftKings app if you want. Make it easy. And then you write it down on a sheet of paper, and you calculate the total projection, the total ownership. Then you go to and then you okay, what's another type of lineup do I want to make? And just keep on doing that. Okay? It's going to take you a long time. I'm telling you, it's going to take you a very long time. Maybe in 6 hours, you're able to make 20 lineups. Like on a sheet of paper and calculating it by hand. Okay? Once you make those 20 lineups, now open up Lineup HQ and without clicking on these lock buttons, without clicking on anything, right? To force something in. I want you to make all 20 lineups at once. Now you're probably not going to be able to do all 20 at once. Now look at all the lineups that you have. Look at the pitching combinations. Like yesterday, let's say it's like, oh, I purposely made a decision not to play Snell and Gallen together. It's like, okay, now that's a group that you make. Because in order for the tool to do that, you need to put in the group, unless you're going to eliminate lineups that have both of them in it. Maybe out of the 22 of them have Snell or Gallen together, but the others have like cheap, like lower owned pitchers. It's like, well, then I can't make that group because some of my lineups will have Snell and Gallen in it, but I will probably have less Snell and Gallen, which means I'm probably going to be messing around with the exposure settings, right? Make the lineups first by hand, then go to Lineup HQ and have it make it for you. Until you get to the point in which you can do that, you should not be touching an optimizer. Okay? And, I'm going to say this, and I say this every time, because I've said this on this show probably 20 times. And out of this point, this show has been going on for about 2.5 years, about a year and a half, something like 2 years. I've explained to do this, and you will get better. If you do this, you will become a world-class DFS player. I guarantee it if you do it. Overnight? No. 5 years from now, you will be. 5 years from now, you'll be playing $50,000 a slate if you wanted to and have an edge. If you did it this way. In my experience, I've said this, and I've told people privately, I've yet to hear someone that has actually done it. Other than myself. How did I learn? That's exactly how I did learn. So I do that. I tell people that if they're not profitable currently, they're not a profitable player right now, you should not be touching an optimizer for at least 2 years. Because you're not going to learn, you're not going to use it properly without understanding concepts of lineup construction for a good 2 years. Because you're going to think in terms of magic settings and exposures and things that you shouldn't be. I'm just delivering the hard truth. And I know what you're thinking. Okay? There are people that are listening right now. They're going, do I really have to do that? And my answer is, if you're saying that, you actually have to do it twice as long. If that's your answer. And the number one thing that you're thinking is you're the exception to the rule. Well, I don't have to do it. I'm good enough to do it. You're not. No one is. In DFS, one of the worst things that could ever go in your head is I'm the exception. That is the worst. Well, I don't have to put in the work. Right? The past 3 weeks I've been doing well. I'm just going to keep on doing what I've been doing because what do I have to? I could take these shortcuts. No one that is good at DFS that takes shortcuts. No one. In fact, most take the longest route possible. And I'm not talking about from a bankroll perspective. I'm talking about from a figuring out the game perspective. Like we have guys like Nerdy Tenor, Daniel Hutchins that's in the chat a lot of times. That said that, like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, or whatever, he was experimenting with stuff and he didn't want to put that much real money on it because he wasn't sure if he had an edge. And he's doing stuff that's like 17 times more complicated than I do, that most of us do. And he's going through. He's going, I think I should have an edge here, but I'm gonna test it in the mini max rather than in the relay throw or whatever, the main contests. And he did that for a long time because in his mind, it's like I can't just be these. Like there are other smart people out there, so I'm going to do all this work just to figure out if it's even worth doing for barely any money. And then once you figure it out, there's like, okay, maybe. And then he didn't even. If you listen to his interview on the Theory of DFS podcast, he didn't even like put his own money down. Like, he got backed. It's like someone else trusted his data handling and his computer programming and says, you take a piece and I'll take all the risk. Okay. And then that's how he started. And everything, he did all that work just to find out if there was a purpose even doing it. Right? You see with tons of sharp players, it's not a matter of, okay, I'm going to show up and just ding dong, ding dong, ding. It may look like that to some people, though. It takes you 5 years to get to that point. I could go in and make that lineup that I made, this lineup. I made this line. I was only going to make one lineup. To choose this lineup took less than 5 minutes. I already know what I was looking for. I knew I wasn't going to play the Mets. I first looked at lineups. I ran lineups and I ran a whole 300 lineups. I'm saying I'm getting a lot of Blue Jays. I'm getting a lot of Mets. I see the combinations and I go, okay, probably don't want to do that. Probably don't want to do this, but because I'm only playing one lineup, I could make different approaches. Some have this, some have that, some have this, but I only have one. So I'm gonna say, like, how much am I giving up by not playing the Mets? Okay, not as much as you think. No, okay, so I don't mind not playing the Mets. How much do I give up by not playing the chalky pitchers? If I play Bassett instead, but he's owned also. If I don't play, and I do that for that's like 3.5 out of the 5 minutes. Then I take a look at where's the ownership levels of, okay, it seems like lineups in about this range look fine because I'm scrolling through, just looking at lineups, look combinations. Okay, I don't want this, I don't want that. And then I was like, okay, I'm gonna X out the Mets. I don't mind this combination. Seems like the Yankees are a little too low owned, right? So I'm like, yeah, maybe let's see what the Yankees show up as, and then I run like a set of like 20 or something. Once I look through all of that, and I go through the 20, and I go, okay, these adhere to that. It's like, yeah, but this has like a one-off there. This has a thing there. And then I came to this lineup, and it's like from the ownership versus the projection look good. Not this lineup though, my lineup, right, with the Yankees. I'm like, okay, it's like Moustakas is leverage on Bassett, who I'm not playing, so I don't mind that. Everyone's paying up at first base typically, right? So I'm like, I looked at this 49.9, whatever. I'm like, okay, done. I could have scrutinized it even more. I could have spent 3 hours to decide on one lineup, but the differences between this lineup and any other lineup I would have chosen probably very marginal. So it's like, okay, looks good, put it in, done. But I already knew what I was looking for quickly because I've been playing for 7 years, right? Almost 7 years. October will be 7 years. Are you at that point to do things that efficiently? Probably not. Then you have like guys like Nerdy Tenor and Brick 75 or whatever. They're programming that all into computer programming, right? They're running simulations. They're essentially making their system apply all those concepts for them without having to even think about it. You know how long it takes to make one of those types of things? And then maintaining and managing and tweaking it and making it better? That's what they're spending all their time doing. Not just showing up and building lineups. Yeah, it looks like showing up and building. It looks like that. They spent thousands of hours to make their process like that. Their process probably 7 years ago was 10 times as long. It's like, well, if I do this and back test this and do this, and next thing you know, you spent your entire day building 150 lineups for one slate. It's like, there has to be a better way. There has to be a more efficient way of doing this. And then okay, well, I could cut this process down here. I got that. I could automate this here. I could pull that information from there. I could run that. I could set a cron job to have this done overnight, right? So I don't have to wake up and have to pull data. And then next thing you know, it's like, oh yeah, as long as I have all the projections in and everything in, I could simulate everything in 7 minutes, right? That's what they'll tell you. It's like, oh, 7 minutes, I could figure out my lineups. Well, how the hell did they do that? Yeah, it took them 5, 7 years. It took them all those years of. Originally, they were spending all day, but now they're not. That's how you should be thinking. Brian Wilson says, I'm going to start playing my lowest projected lineups and see what happens. Yeah, you're going to do worse. Not the lowest. You don't want to play the lowest projected lineup. You want to play the highest projected lineup for the lowest ownership. That's essentially what you're looking to do. Right, DFix says, I started hand building with no tools, got lucky and won an NFL GPP early on, then dove into tools and have struggled since, right? Because you never learned how to. You're viewing, this is what all the sharp people do. They use these tools. So tell me what settings to use in the tools. That's not the way it works. They're good at DFS. The sharp players, if you took away all the tools. I'm not talking about taking away projections. I'm talking about just taking away the tools. If in order to make 150 lineups, you had to build it by hand, the sharp players that play 100 would still be the winners. They just take forever to build their 150 lineups. If everything was only single entry, the sharpest players would be the most successful also. And you took away the tools that they hand, and that you could only hand build. You could only type the name by name into an app. They'd still be the best. It's not the tools that make them successful. The tools make them quicker. That's all the tools are. To make your process more efficient. And also as a research tool. I use it as a research tool, but I mean, I could do any of that in Excel if I wanted to. And that's what most do. Maybe not even Excel. You're running a Python script or something like that. You could write an optimizer in Excel. It's going to be very clunky if you do, but you can. I could in Excel go, here are all the players, give me all the combinations of lineups. Now in a 14-game baseball slate, my computer blows up. Or it'll do it and it will take forever. It will still be running weeks from now. Like that, because of how many combinations there could be on a 14-game slate. So if you want a GPP hand building, why aren't you just continuing to hand build? You should be hand building until you're able to show up to an optimizer and say, I know I'm going to hand build 5 lineups, and now I can make the tool build those 5 lineups for me. That's what you should be able to do. You should be able to say, here are my 5 lineups. And go, okay, I have these guys. Okay, how do I get this tool to build those 5 lineups in less time than it is for me to hand build 5 lineups? That's essentially what you do. Adrian Anderson, same. I've won 2,000 a couple of times in GPP, just making up random lineups and luck, but still can't figure out how the Sharks do it constantly. They don't do it constantly. Sharks do not do it constantly. People don't realize. I'm a very profitable player. Okay, in GP, I'm a profitable everywhere, but not in golf. Golf, I'm actually down in. But I haven't played it seriously in years. If you're Squirrel Patrol, you do it constantly. No, he doesn't do it constantly. John does not do it constantly. He may have periods where variance is on the side, but there's also periods where He's down 6 figures. To you, it seems like constantly because he's playing every contest. So here's the difference. When the sharp players hit, they hit big. Yeah, that's the point. Your goal, depending on how many lineups you're playing, how much volume you're putting in, determines of how often you need to hit big. Okay? If you're playing if you're playing 20, let's just say you're playing 20 lineups a slate into the large field contest. That pays 100. We're making a fictional example. Let's say you play every day. Doesn't matter the sport, whatever. You play 365 days a year, and you're playing 20 entries into a contest that gets 100,000 to first. How often do you need to win first place in the course of 365 days to be extremely profitable? 1. That's it. Let's just say it's a $15 contest. $15 contest, and you have 20 lineups. So you're paying $300 a day. Okay? $300 a day times 365. It's 109,500. So, but of course, that if you I'll put in 300 and lost it all. But that doesn't happen most days. Most days you get more than half of your money back, right? Because you cash some of the lineups. You may have some days. Yeah, you have some days where you put in 20 lineups for $300 and you get back 0. But you have a lot of days where you put in 300 and you get back 220. You put in 300, you get back 100 even. Or you put in 300 and you get 425, right? Like, you're not always losing all $300. So if you play $300 a day for 365 days and you get back on average, let's just say half of your money on average. And I think that's conservative. So that means you're losing on average $150 a day. Okay. So that's, if you're playing 365 days, that's $54,750. First place is $100,000. So how many times for you to make about 45,000, 50,000 for the year, playing every single day, 20 lineups? How often do you have to win first place? Once. You could lose 364 days of the year and be wildly profitable. Wildly profitable. What that is describes me. If I win, typically I based on my volume, for GPPs only, I need to win big to some extent twice a year. Like once a year to break even. Twice a year is a great year. That's it. Literally, that's it. Last year, I hit MMA for $116,000. That made my year. Like, I could lose every day of the rest of the year, and I'll still be up. And I'll actually probably still be up a significant amount. $50,000 or something. Once. Because I'm not playing 150 lineups most of the time in a lot of sports. Hit big once in a year. You could lose every day otherwise. Be wildly profitable as long as you're building lineups to win that once. So the goal is in consistency in GPP. The goal is winning big once in a year, twice in a year, in a season. I'll play MLB for 180 days. If I win once, win 50,000, 100,000 once, wildly profitable year. Every other day I could lose everything, right? That's what it is. Now, if you're playing 150 lineups, now you have to scale that to like a month. Like, in order to be profitable, you have to win at least once per month. And even then, sometimes you're not profitable, right? Now you're putting in, let's say it's 100,000 first. We do that also. 150 lineups now. 150 times, instead of 20 lineups, you're putting in 150 lineups. So 150 times 15. times 15 is 22.50 a day. And let's say on average, because you're diversifying, whatever, you still get back, let's say, on average, like 15.50. Let's just say on average, 15.50. So that's maybe not like 14. Yeah, you'll go something like that, like 12, maybe 14.50. Maybe you're losing $800 on average a day. Yeah, that seems about reasonable. Okay, so $800 a day you're losing. 365 days a year in this fictional example. That's $292,000. So you would have to win $100,000 three times in order in a year to break even, just to break even. Now, some of them aren't even 100,000. Sometimes it's 50,000 the first, right? 50, 100,000 the first. You're gonna have to win 4, 5, 6 times throughout the year just to break even. Just to break even. This is only the large field contest. We're not talking about like the 777, and now you're also playing on FanDuel, whatever. So it's like if you're not averaging like winning first place in something like at least once a month at that volume level, then you're losing money. So that's why it seems like oh well, those guys are winning all the time. Yeah, well, it's different people on different days. It's not the same person. Someone goes on a run. Oh, they won 4 times this month. It's like, okay, that month made up for their horrible whatever NFL season where they lost $750,000. There's still I've seen Roto Trackers graphs where someone wins $600,000 on an NFL weekend, and it's like, oh, now they're even. Now they're even on the season. Now they're even on the year. So when you see often, it's because people have a lot of entries. In MMA, a lot of times in MMA, I'm playing 100 lineups. Sometimes I play a 150 on a larger slate. I have to win more. I have to win first place more often. If you're playing 20 lineups, you don't have build 20 great lineups. You bink once a year, you're rolling it. You're Scrooge McDucking it. You have to understand that. Because mentally, if you don't understand that, people come to me and say, I've lost money on every slate for the past 3 weeks. Am I doing something wrong? I go, past 3 weeks? What do you? And sometimes I wish I was only losing the past 3 weeks. I've been losing the past 6 weeks. Because dude, you could. An NFL season is what, 18 weeks now? Main slates plus the Thanksgiving. Even if you don't count showdowns, you get 20 main slates maybe. That's like 3 weeks of MLB. So if it's like, oh, the past NFL season was bad. It's like saying the past 3 weeks in MLB are bad for GPPs. It's not talking about cash games. I'm talking about GPPs. So once you put that into perspective, what's your expectations are wildly too high. Wildly too high. I always bring up this fact that 2 years ago, only because I did an analysis on it on an MLB season. I played like almost 200 slates of MLB. This was like 2019 or something. It was a MLB season where I came in. I won one. I came in second, and I had like a couple of like top fives or something like that. It was a good MLB season for me. And I asked people. It's like, out of those 200 days, what percentage of the days did I lose money? Meaning I got back less than I put in. And I thought, it's like, okay, well, I mean, people thought like, okay, you're going to lose more often than not. But people were telling me half the time, 60% of the time, 70% of the time, like 60, like people are doing 50%. Oh, that half the time you make money. Half the time you don't. Type of thing. I was like, no, I lost money 94% of the time. They go, wow, how much money? And then they go, wow, how much money did you lose on the season? I said, I was up $35,000. And you go, how the hell do you do that? It's like, well, the 6% of the times that I won, there were a couple of really big ones in those, right? Because I'm playing lineups that try to come in first or last, not cash. With the 15% rake or whatever, you're not going to cash often enough to do 1.5x yourself and 2x yourself to a profitable season. All the positive equity plus EV stuff is in the top spots. So if you're not building lineups to get in the top spots, then what the hell are you playing GPPs for? But it also means you're going to lose. I mean, like 22% of the field gets paid or something in GPPs. So like 78% of the time, if everyone was equally skilled, you're going to lose 78% of the time as it is. That would be normal to lose 78% of the time. Normal. That would be the normal. You know, well, good players should lose less. No, actually, good players lose more. Lose often, more often. Because take a look at the pay scale. You're wanting to increase the variance of your lineup. So your lineups are more likely to appear towards the top or towards the bottom rather than in the middle, which means you're going to have a lot of slates where a lot of lineups you're playing are dead or die. They die. And you're doing that every single day until it's first to last, and finally you go, sixth place. It's like, okay, a couple of grand there. Okay, that's fine. Then you wait around and you just wait. You wait for the binks. As long as you're playing well. And sometimes you got to wait a while. Sometimes you got to wait a while if you're playing. Even if you're playing great, you got to wait a while. Sometimes they happen. Sometimes you get, in a month, you get 3 of them. And then you don't see anything for a year. I mean, like, it could be that. You don't have any control of what the hell is going on other than the lineups that you're playing. Marino says, why don't you play golf DFS? Figured like it because of the volatility. It's actually not as volatile as you think. The problem is that in PGA, if you analyze on DraftKings at least, the highest predictor of fantasy points is ownership. Whenever that's the case in a DFS sport, that means it's not that high edge. It's the only sport that I've ever seen that's like that. The pricing versus the ownership versus the projection is very efficient. Doesn't mean it's high. It's high variance. I agree with you. You're right. There's a volatility on that. But when the biggest if like, oh, this guy's going to be 26% owned, like he probably should be 26% owned. These guys aren't over owned or under owned. Like when the predictive power of just ownership is higher than the actual like strokes gain stats or anything like that. That's always that's when I pretty much got out of it. I said when the best when I could back test 2 years worth of slates and go, which is the biggest predictor of fantasy points, and it's ownership. Like in other sports, ownership is like 16th on the list, right? And that's what you want to play, right? Where ownership is not a predictor of success, but when ownership is a predictor of success, then where's the edge there? Like, right? Oh, so I'm just going to play the highest owned plays. Well, you're not going to win first in a large field GPP that way. You need leverage, but as you get rid of leverage, you're actually losing out because ownership matter. Ownership, the higher on the player is a lot more likely they're going to be successful based on previous data. MJC is absolutely right. Treat DFS like a somewhat long-term, no, you should treat it like a long-term. Okay, it depends on what you consider not a 20-year investment, but 5 years minimum, right? Just stick to the same process until it hits. That's absolutely right. And that's why bankroll management. That's why I'm a nit. I'm not a nit in how I play DFS. Like, you take a look at my lineups and go, wow, you had balls to play that in that contest. I'm like, yeah, if I think it's plus EV, I will play it. But I play less than like 1% of my bankroll on a day. A lot of times, even in soccer, sometimes I'm like, okay, I got like 0.4% of my bankroll in play. That's it. Even with an edge. So it's like, I'm not going to take $200 head-to-heads with Saramek. What's the point of doing that? There's no contest. It's like, okay, this contest has $10,000 to first and $400 to sixth place. I ain't playing that contest. I don't care if it's the main GPP in soccer. I'm just not going to play it. I'll just play head-to-heads and cash games, and sometimes even the small field GPP. They'll run a $200 GPP, and that is like, oh, it's 10K to it's 15K to first and like 5K to second and 3K is and 1K to third. and 10th place is $300. It's it's like some bull crap like that. Like I ain't even playing that one. Okay, fine. I only have $400 to play. So be it. But if I don't have an edge, I'm not going to put it in. There's some MMA slates. This is past MMA slate. I only played 3 lineups. I only played 6 lineups because 2 fights got canceled. It ended up being like a 10-fight card and the 2 fights that got canceled were mid-range fights. So it's like it makes the construction versus the likelihood of being the winning lineup was just like I'm going to run into way too many dupes. So I was planning on playing 75 lineups in the large field contest, and I just withdrew from all of them. So I'll play some of the smaller field stuff and just play 6 lineups. I ended up making money. I did pretty well. I made like 2,400 or something in MMA this past weekend. That's pretty good. Didn't bink or anything, but like I play less volume, the less I see there's a reason to play it. So that's the bankroll management aspect. Well, how could you like when I used to play like all the vomit stacks, and I still do on occasion, but it's not as advantageous now than it was before. When I was playing the Marlins and the Reds, and I was doing the A's on a slate, like really bad teams. And it's like, what's the vomit stack of the day? It's like, oh, it's the Tigers today. And people are like, oh, you must be threatened. And then they rarely come in. But on a day where the Marlins put up like 16 runs, people would be messaging me going, it looks like you should be winning all the money, right? Sometimes I don't have them. Sometimes I do. But most of my MLB wins have been on those types of teams. And you go, well, like how did you know the Tigers on that day? How did you know the Reds on that day? I didn't. I just do this every day until I wait for one thing to happen. Right? I lost a lot of money doing that, and then bink. I make 5 times more than I should when it happens, right? So it's yeah. So you got to spend money in order to make money. But you keep that process, and you keep your bankroll manager. Not I've lost over a week. I need to double down now. Like that's the gambler's fallacy is the worst. So just play a small whatever you think is a small percentage of your bankroll. It's probably not small enough. And I see people that did well. I mean, I would in the RotoGrinders Discord. It's like, oh, seems like this guy's doing well. And then like 3 months later, it's like yeah, I'm in a big rut. Like my bankroll is shot. Like, how is that possible? So didn't you win like 40,000 or something? It's like, yeah, but then I played 10 lineups into whatever $400 contest every day. Like, what? Well, why? Why are you doing that? And it comes back to let's go right around to what I said before. Well, I thought I was the exception. Well, now that I won $100,000. Now I could play 10 lineups in the $88 contest, even though I was not playing. I was only playing $200 a day. Now, I could play $4,000 a day now. $5,000 a day. I'm the exception to the rule. It's like, no, it doesn't mean you go back to necessarily playing $400 a day, but now you're playing $600, $800 a day. Right? Play less than 1% of your bankroll. Unless you know you have an edge, unless you know for sure. It's like in this specific thing, yes, and then you push your chips in. Yeah, I get it. If you know for sure. But if you don't, you shouldn't be moving up like that. And that's what kills people, right? Because it's like, okay, you're playing, it kills people that do well. Imagine me. Like, it's like, okay, as long as I bink twice in a year, I have great profit. Yeah, at the current level. But imagine it's like, I bink, and then it's like, okay, now I'm gonna be playing $10,000 a slate. Well, if I go on a rut, then like it's gonna wipe out my $50,000 win in a course of like 2 or 3 weeks. So why the hell would I do that? Now, if I win during that period, of course, I can make like $500,000. Yeah, sure, it goes up exponentially from there. But my goal isn't to make millions of dollars. My goal is to make $50,000 to $75,000 a year. I'm optimizing my play and my process and my bankroll management for that. So that's what I do. So I probably left a lot of money on the table over the years, probably. But it would have also increased the chance that you don't even know who I am now. So I did that back in 2017. Maybe I would have gone broke, and I mean, like, okay, DFS sucks. I'm out. I'm out of here. But that gets good players also. Do you get overconfident? You win. You play well and win, and you win $20,000 in a night when you're normally playing $200 a day, and then you decide, oh, tomorrow I'm going to play the 555. Well, what's so special about tomorrow? Other than you won 20,000 yesterday. Do you have extra edge on this slate in a different field with sharper players? No. Then why are you playing it? Well, because I have more money in my account. So, what percentage are you playing? You should be playing percentages. What is your bankroll? Well, my bankroll is 50,000. It's like, what percentage are you playing? You want to play 10%? 5,000 a day? I mean, I consider that to be way high risk. You can. That's a percent at least. So at least if you do that and you go down to 25,000, now you're only playing 2,500 a day. So at least it does just a percent up or down as you go up or down. I wouldn't do 10%. I would think more like 2%. The $10,000 bankroll, I'll play 2%. That's what? $200 a day? There you go. That's what you'd be playing. With a 4%, whatever, something like that. But if 10,000 goes up to 20,000, now you could play twice as much. Now instead of 400, you're playing 800. But if you're going a bad streak and now you're down to 5,000, now you're only playing $100 a day, or $150 a day, or whatever. Like that's how you should be treating it. Not on whether or not, like, oh, I binked yesterday. I'm going to treat myself for treat yourself for what? What makes tomorrow special, more different than yesterday? You're doing the same type of process over, like I'm going to do the same thing I normally do, then wait for the money. So you want to exponentially get higher as your bankroll goes higher, sure, but you shouldn't be. Oh, now I'm going to put 20. Oh, because I had a good score in NBA. I'm going to max enter the Millie Maker tomorrow. Like what? Like that's the stuff that you have to get at. Why? What are you doing? It's real money. It's not just numbers on a screen in your account. It's real. It's your money. Add it to your bankroll. You play a percentage, and that's it. You may move up in stakes. But you go, okay, now with that percentage, now I could play $800 a day. So for the extra volume, I'm going to play 10 more extra entries into this, or I'm going to do the single entry 121 instead. I'm going to do allocate it whatever way you want to allocate it. But it should be done based on a percentage, not on, willy-nilly type of stuff. MJC, are you playing in the 150 max with only 1 to 10 lineups? Okay, yes, dude, that is what I do. It's very rare that I have 150 lineups into a large field contest. It's very rare. Dude, I think all of my wins, biggest wins in GPPs, I've never maxed out. And in fact, my biggest NBA win, I think I had 4 lineups in the contest. I think I had 4 lineups. I think 100,000. I had I won $50,000. I think I had 15 lineups. Right, something like that. But you have to build lineups for those types of contests. What people do is go, I only have 3 lineups, so I can't afford to lose. Like that's not how you play large field contests. You should be playing 3 lineups that are. I mean, look at the lineup that I played yesterday. Like, and this is small field single entry, but even if large, I mean, just like okay, well, what happens if the Mets score 10 runs? Well, then I lose. So be it. I only have 1 lineup. You got to play the Mets if you have 1. You have to avoid that. What is the contest size? What you build a plus EV lineup for the contest that you're playing. If you're playing large field contest, build large field lineups. You're playing NFL and some running back is going to be 35% owned that you'd think shouldn't be. Should be less owned. And you go, well, I only have 3 lineups. I got to play him in one of them because what happens if he goes nuts? Like, you shouldn't think that. You should go, all 3 lineups are obviously not going to have that guy in it. And I'm going to play the line stack in one lineup, and I'm going to play this thing in this other lineup. You're playing large field contests. Even if you're playing 3 lineups, play 3 lineups that could win a large field contest. Don't worry about it. You only have 3 lineups, right? They're $15 each. Well, I want to get some of my money back. Like, no, then if your attitude is I want to get some of my money back, then you shouldn't be playing GPPs as we get some porn bots in the chat. Okay. So we got some lessons today. So people ask questions. We got some answers. Got some stuff going on. We got Grinders live later today, 5 o'clock Eastern. Large slate, 14 game slate. That's followed by Crunch Time. Kevin Roth will be there with the weather. We got the weather report up here. We got some places to watch: Baltimore, Philadelphia, maybe New York. Right? He'll be there. All the guys will be there, breaking down everything for you. Hit that thumbs up button on your way out the door. Yes, give me those thumbs. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Hit that notification bell to know every time that we go live. And yeah, we had a pretty productive day on the show, teaching some stuff, answering questions that I've answered before, but I don't mind when I see new people that have those types of questions, because that's what I do. That's what I do here, 11 o'clock in the morning Eastern, answering your DFS strategy questions like I normally do on the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.